I spent 23 years in a marriage that seemed quite normal to me. You could say I was happy. I was happy until one incident happened that turned my life upside down. If it seems to you that my wife just betrayed me, then you are mistaken. Now I will tell you everything as it was. I found myself in a state of shock, literally frozen in the doorway of my bedroom. My mind was spinning and my vision blurred as I tried to comprehend the scene before me. The unmistakable evidence unfolded as I saw my wife, whom I'd known intimately for 23 years, lying on our bed with a large hairy man between her legs. The auditory proof reached my ears. James, one of the managers from my wife's office, was involved, and Jessica, my wife, was clearly craving his presence. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. My wife engaged in intimate acts with another man. James's voice echoed in the room, and I wondered about the boundaries of matrimony as Jessica passionately responded to his advances. My emotions swirled as I grappled with the reality unfolding before me. Despite James's annoying commentary, I couldn't bear the situation. My military training instincts kicked in, and I took action. Grabbing James by the hair, I delivered a forceful punch to his cheek, rendering him motionless. With a quick exit, I left Jessica oblivious to my presence. Outside the room, I listened as Jessica discovered the aftermath, James unconscious and bleeding. My hands trembled with concern, and I contemplated my next move. Concerned about my own well-being, I decided to seek advice from Google, driving to a nearby park to avoid the chaotic scene. In my parked car, I initiated a Google search on what to do after knocking out a man in my bedroom. The search results provided some humor and diversion, with jokes and irrelevant queries. I chuckled at the jokes but realized I needed more practical guidance. One intriguing link caught my attention: the number one sign that your wife is about to cheat. It dawned on me that I might have missed obvious signs, and I wished I had read this earlier. Curiosity led me to explore the content, only to find a treatise written by misogynists. The information wasn't helpful, but it added to the layers of confusion and betrayal that enveloped me. If I was going to be unfaithful, I needed to monitor her fertile cycles, especially since she was on the pill, and Google proved unhelpful. Driving back to work, I entered through the back door unnoticed and called Lauren, my secretary, to come over urgently for a task. Handing her the letters to mail, I explained that something came up, and she returned to her desk. Despite the difficulty of working with a painful arm, I completed the day's tasks and went home, curious about Jessica's reaction to the day's events. As I entered the house, the aroma of dinner, possibly Italian, greeted me. Jessica was in the kitchen and I greeted her, hoping for Italian food. She asked about my day, and as we talked, I jokingly mentioned a way to blind a woman with 3 air conditioners over the windshield. After inquiring about her day, Jessica shared the usual routine, concealing the more intriguing aspects of her life. I excused myself to shower and change, half expecting to find our bedroom marked as a crime scene, but everything seemed normal. Later, during dinner, I noticed a small spot of blood on the mattress, prompting me to question Jessica about it. Going upstairs to change, I examined her leg closely, claiming I wanted to kiss the cut for faster healing. She explained that she had cut herself while shaving. I accepted her explanation, and we proceeded to have a friendly dinner. In the living room, I brought up the blood spot on the mattress, and Jessica explained it away, mentioning it was from a while ago. I playfully offered to kiss it, but she redirected the conversation, suggesting there was something else I could kiss, a proposition I declined, surprising her as I usually never turned down such opportunities. Anyway, the notion of kissing something recently occupied by an unconscious man didn't appeal to me. Well, basically, occupied by any man except me. She looked at me with some concern and I pretended to be indifferent, which eased Jessica's worry. I suggested watching a couple of episodes on Netflix, and she agreed. We settled on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, finding a compromise as she enjoyed it, and I didn't hate it. Later, she attempted to get me into bed, but I claimed to have urgent papers to review, and she went for a bath, likely still desiring intimacy with her lover. We had been happily married for 23 years, with a beautiful daughter named Bailey. Jessica had been a good wife and mother, However, contemplating a no-fault divorce, I made a list of assets. I decided to give Jessica the home, an asset I disliked, for the sake of a more equitable division of the others. Bailey was the asset I truly wanted, and I had to figure out how to ensure I didn't have to share her with Jessica. A visit to James, who had sustained injuries, seemed to be part of my plan. Late at night, I sat down at my computer researching the medical facilities where James was being treated. With my expertise in hospital software, I found out where they were keeping him, planning to visit in the morning. James had suffered injuries, making it safe for me to inspect the damage. I aligned my goals, knowing exactly what I needed to achieve. Heading to bed at 1 a.m., Jessica was already asleep, and her presence seemed somewhat unpleasant. She snuggled against me, but I felt a bit repulsed. Jessica's transformation from sexy to disgusting in one day was astounding. The following morning, she was still asleep when I left for work, having already brewed coffee, added garlic powder to it, and consumed a scone. Arriving at the hospital, I spoke to my friend Lila, the hospital administrator, who provided me with a plastic pass for server maintenance. Inquiring about James at the information desk, I was given his room number. Walking in, I found him awake but seemingly unable to recognize me due to the extensive swelling and bandages covering his face. The pain was almost as intense as the throbbing in my arm after the hit. I grabbed his medical records and scanning them with my phone, and then took various pictures from different angles around his bed. He was muttering incoherently, but I paid no attention. After turning in my pass, I headed to work. Around 8:30, I received a text from Jessica about an issue with the coffee pot. Despite my opinion that it tasted fine, I put out some urgent questions and informed Lauren that I was taking the rest of the day off. I arranged to meet Bailey for lunch, hoping she might come home with me. Initially, Bailey was skeptical and accused me of trying to leave my mom. However, after explaining the situation, showing her scans and pictures, she broke down, and I had to comfort her. Bailey eventually suggested divorcing Jessica and leaving her with nothing. While I considered it, we acknowledged the missing necessary conditions. Bailey calmed down and wanted to confront Jessica immediately, so we headed home together. When Jessica walked in and saw us on the couch, she rushed over to hug Bailey, but her daughter pulled her aside, expressing her discomfort. Bailey accused Jessica of potential hygiene concerns and suggested she might have stuck her hands down someone's pants at work. Jessica was shocked, and Bailey stood her ground. Jessica looked at me for an explanation, and after I disclosed the ambulance and police visit, her eyes glazed over. She collapsed, and Bailey and I helped her to the couch, speculating that she may have passed out momentarily. We reassured each other that she would regain consciousness soon. I sat there waiting, discussing schoolwork and mundane things when Jessica suddenly groaned. Bailey, my daughter, went to the kitchen, returning with a cool, damp cloth and a bottle of water to help Jessica. As she washed her face and assisted her in drinking water, Jessica calmed down a bit. When Jessica asked how Bailey knew about her seeing someone, Bailey's voice dripped with sarcasm, and Jessica decided to discuss it privately with her and my husband. Bailey's fury was palpable, and she expressed her discontent at being treated like a child. Despite her anger, she resumed talking about the situation. Jessica, devastated, apologized, and Bailey vented her frustration, claiming her spring break plans were ruined. Her bold words shocked me, as I had never heard her use such language before. The emotional scene continued, with Bailey expressing her disappointment in Jessica for ruining the family. Amidst the chaos, I interjected with questions, seeking clarification on what had happened between Jessica and James. Jessica, overwhelmed with emotions, broke into hysterical sobs. When she calmed down, I pressed for answers, questioning if Jessica was sorry for loving James and apologizing for finding happiness elsewhere. As Jessica attempted to explain, I interrupted, stating that I hadn't done anything, and according to the police, I was at work during the alleged incident. Jessica was incredulous, questioning how I knew about the police investigation. In a mockingly theatrical manner, I claimed to have spy devices all over the house and pretended to have connections with the CIA and the mafia. Jessica, distressed, pleaded for a break, covering her ears. and Bailey suggested taking a break from the intense discussion. I took Bailey to Dairy Queen, hoping to provide a temporary escape for her. When we returned, Jessica, seemingly more composed, sat on the couch. Bailey handed her a Blizzard pie, and Jessica absent-mindedly took a bite, wrinkling her nose at the taste. As we sat down, Jessica expressed her desire to explain what happened. However, I asserted my lack of interest in the details and emphasized my concern about what she intended to do moving forward. This seemed to unsettle her, and I questioned why those who commit despicable acts feel entitled to explain their actions, while victims are expected to listen to their misfortune being justified. Feeling like a victim, I expressed my frustration, unsure of what to do. Bailey suggested we go somewhere far away, but I pleaded with her not to make things worse. Jessica, my daughter, voiced her hope that we could overcome this challenge. Admitting my colossal mistake, I begged Cedric for a chance to prove I wouldn't repeat it. Bailey mocked the term mistake by recounting trivial errors, prompting a realization that my actions were far worse. Apologizing for my stupidity, I promised to demonstrate genuine remorse. Bailey questioned why I hadn't simply asked the person to leave instead of resorting to extreme measures. Cedric, revealing his knowledge of the situation through surveillance equipment, suggested using Bailey's room or the bathroom for such encounters, triggering disgust. I fabricated a story about connections with the mafia and the CIA to conceal the truth, emphasizing secrecy. Acknowledging my stupidity, I affirmed that I needed to make amends. When asked about my plan, I admitted I didn't have one and didn't expect to get caught. Bailey sarcastically reassured me that it was acceptable since it happened only twice and I didn't anticipate repercussions. However, I clarified that it wasn't okay. A thought occurred to me. How did I plan to convince Cedric to believe me? I insisted on my honesty, but Cedric and Bailey highlighted instances where I had lied. Despite my denial, I ultimately admitted to lying about the situation. Expressing frustration, Bailey questioned if I had just punched the person goodbye. I clarified that it wasn't the case, leading to confusion. Cedric emphasized that the number of times didn't matter. What mattered was what I had done. Jessica stared at us with haunted eyes, urging Bailey to stop interrupting. "Let me clarify," she started to say, but stopped abruptly, sensing my reluctance to hear explanations. I reiterated that I didn't want explanations. I wanted to know what she planned to do. With hands folded in her lap, she began crying again, confessing she didn't know what to do. Frustrated, I told her that if she messed up, she needed to fix it. Expressing my disappointment, I suggested she move her things to the guest room. While I couldn't force her to leave, I made it clear I didn't want her near me. Despite her tearful pleas, I insisted on this arrangement. Bailey interjected with a light-hearted comment about the bed's poor quality, suggesting it must have been bought 50 years ago. Jessica, emotional and pleading, begged not to be put through this, but I remained firm. Bailey humorously remarked on not using the bed for any romantic endeavors. I shifted my stance, deciding not to sleep on my bed either, joking about the potential bite marks from James. Jessica, almost screaming, denied any other involvement, but I reminded her of James' blood on the mattress. Concerned about potential risks, I mentioned the possibility of AIDS and suggested checking out Adams for a change. Bailey, thrilled with the idea, expressed excitement about the prospect of staying there. Jessica objected due to Bailey's age, but relented when I assured it would be within our room, with me keeping an eye on her. Jessica pleaded not to leave, but Bailey and I had already decided to move. I swiftly packed a bag, took only what I needed for a couple of days, and we drove to Adams. Despite our shared depression, the change of setting and a bit of intoxication lifted our spirits. Bailey, a cheerful drunk, lightened the mood, and we both managed to find some solace during the night. In the morning, we had breakfast, attempting to discuss our future. Bailey, my daughter, inquired about my plans. Uncertain, I suggested consulting a lawyer. When she asked if I could overcome this and stay with her, I expressed doubt, acknowledging that the betrayal seemed irreparable. Bailey understood, recognizing the weight of 23 years of marriage. She returned to class, and I decided to stay another night, acknowledging that facing the reality of the situation was inevitable. Upon arriving home, I found Jessica at the kitchen table, clearly distressed. I poured myself a glass of milk and confronted her. I stopped her as she began to explain, stating that I wasn't interested in hearing her needs. I emphasized my desire for a faithful wife and a trustworthy mother for Bailey. Jessica, on the verge of tears, attempted to express herself. I interrupted, insisting that we go to Robinson's office the next day, prompting her confusion. When she questioned the purpose, I stated matter-of-factly that it was customary when couples consider divorce. She protested, claiming she didn't want a divorce, but I countered, highlighting the consequences of her actions. As she pleaded for a chance to fix things, I remained skeptical, questioning her honesty. She admitted to the mistake, expressing remorse and a desire to mend the damage. Despite her plea, I insisted on going to the lawyer's office to discuss our options. When she pleaded for me to talk to her, I drew a parallel, asking how she would feel if roles were reversed. Her response suggested her expectation of a more lenient reaction from me. In response, I acknowledged her apology, but remained unsure about the future. I emphasized my commitment to monogamy, stating that I loved only one woman, my wife. I believed you were committed to a monogamous relationship, and I was mistaken. No, you weren't wrong, I thought. I was making foolish decisions and using terrible judgment. I've decided to see a therapist, Cedric. I'm open to going to counseling with you, and I'm even considering attending church, maybe with Bailey. I'm genuinely sorry, Cedric. I know there's more I need to do. Please give me a chance. In utter disbelief, I pondered the situation. I had shared my life with this woman for 23 years, loved her, and now, despite Bailey's apparent acceptance, I questioned whether kicking her out would be the right move. Would Bailey lose respect for me? I had no answers. Glancing at Jessica, I saw her sitting there with frightened eyes, resembling a puppy caught in the act of tearing up slippers. Addressing Jessica, I acknowledged, "Jessica, you really messed up on this one. I don't know how you're going to convince me to trust you again, or make me see you as desirable. I'm willing to give you a chance, but we'll have to see how it goes." The next morning, Bailey called, sharing that Jessica had asked to attend church with her the following Sunday. I explained the situation, and Bailey, being understanding, said, "I'm glad, Daddy. She messed up, but I love her. I'm mad at her, and I won't put up with it for a long time. But I know she loves you and you love her. I'll help however I can. I love you, Daddy, and I'll always be there for you." Grateful for Bailey's support, I assured her, "Thank you, baby. Just focus on yourself, and I love you too. I think we'll figure things out." Jessica is a beautiful woman, and I'm optimistic that the memories of those 23 good years will eventually overshadow the pain of that terrible day. We'll have to see how it unfolds. I've reached out to Google. They're seeking better responses to some common questions.
How do you like this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Tell us what you would do if, God forbid, you found yourself in a similar situation. I think that the man did the right thing, even if it was under strong emotional influence. What do you think?